was a pretty easy transition. Plus, if you're surrounded by the whole cast and everybody's growing up together, that's not such a big leap, you know. And then if you, as the actress, just never grows up yourself, that also makes it easy, I think.
So you've done a lot of work in cartoon animation, but also some work in video games. Do you have a particular video game role that you took a shining to over your animation roles?
Wow, you know, I really love Blizzard, the company Blizzard. They've been super generous to me, and Andrea Torres has been super kind to me. And I really love, you know, the Diablo game. I love this character, Executor Celendez, and I love Ariel, another character that I do for Blizzard. Those characters have a kind of sweetness to me. I've always loved fantasy, just personally, and so those are the ones. I don't play many video games, probably just because I got 2 babies, and what would happen if I was spending my time playing video games. But as far as acting in them, I think those are probably my favorites, the Blizzard ones.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have any rituals before you take on a role?
Oh yes, you know, I like to do some Jack Daniels. The only ritual would just be to take your time and prepare. You know, I think performance is all about preparation. If you're completely prepared, then you can get to the job and you can riff and improvise and do all kinds of things. But the only way to be able to improvise and have that kind of freedom is if you know the material inside out. So I would say I practice.
What was the moment in your career where you, maybe early on or later, where you truly felt like this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now?
That's a great question. You know, I think sometimes when you start acting as a child, you can take it for granted, or not even take it for granted. That's a kind of harsh way to put it. You just don't give a shit. You're a kid, you got other priorities, and it's great to have money to afford your own bike, you know, or your own whatever. But I do remember I left Toronto at 16. I moved to Los Angeles alone, and at 17 I started doing Steven Spielberg's Tiny Toons. And I remember being in the room with Jess Harnell, Stress McNeil, my voiceover idol, Jeff Bennett, Charlie Adler, directed by Andrea Romano, just Kath Soucie, just being in Frank Welker, you know, my little Flanky. Just being with so many incredibly talented people. I think that was the first time. I remember sitting next to Stress, that's what I call her, but her name's Stress McNeil, and I sat beside her and she did like 15 voices in this session. And I remember just my hat got up and spun around, and I just couldn't believe how fucking talented she was. And I did have a conscious moment of saying, I want to be good at this. I'm so happy to get to this table, and now I want to deserve to be here. So that was definitely the turning point. Also, I would say working with Debbie Allen and Jasmine Guy. You know, Debbie Allen was just so incredible. I'd never been in a position where I was on a hit show that was produced, directed, and created by and starring all black women. And that was another moment when I knew I wanted to be good at this.
So cool.
You have served as a major inspiration to little girls of color and pretty much anyone who's ever wanted to be a voice actress. Your name is always spoken with high renown. What advice would you give to anyone who wanted to break into the industry or who was thinking of becoming a voice actress themselves?
Wow. I think VO is a tough little tight-knit industry. I mean, that's the thing that people don't know is it's a very small community. And there's a lot of charlatans out there. There's a million voiceover classes you can take from, you know, this, that, and I'm gonna get you money. And they don't necessarily have a real end to the industry. I would suggest, first of all, when you're alone time reading aloud, hearing your own voice. I think a lot of people don't even know what they really sound like. Record yourself, listen to yourself back, really get to know your own voice. And then find out when you're listening to yourself what makes you so special, and really start to love it. And then also realize that it's not about doing a million voices. It's about being a great actor. You can actually just do the same old damn voice, but if you can act your ass off, you really do transform into a different voice. I think people think it's all about, you know, talking like this, you're talking like this. But it's not, it's about acting like that. And then I would suggest in your neighborhood or in your state, finding the 3 biggest talent agencies that exist there, call and ask for the voiceover department, and ask them to refer you to a voiceover class, because they will refer you to a legitimate class, not some shuck and jive person trying to take your money that doesn't count. That's the best thing to do.
Thank you.
And break a leg.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For everybody. What do you think about, I like what you said about, it's not about who is in something, but focusing on who's not included so that we can get that, out in the open. What do you think about conventions these days? I will push ours in particular, but just any convention you've gone to lately about how the community has become more inclusive, just in terms of attendees and guests.
This is just, God bless the freaks, I always say. And I have to say I'm particularly tickled about Momocon because there's just so many brown freaks everywhere. And I don't know, I just love it. It just feels like I'm walking amongst my tribe. And there's something that just makes you feel safe. I mean, I've always felt safe among freaks, and I think that we shall inherit the earth, and I think it's going to be real hard to be a square soon, because we come for you. But I do love that about cons. I think finally we can all come up from the dungeons and be in the light of day, and go to dinner together, hang out in each other's hotel room, and do ain't none of your business. But I do love that. I do. That's the magic about these kind of gatherings, is we can finally come together.
Was there growing up? Was there any particular character or particular role that you found inspiration for, or that you took solace in?
Well, growing up, I'm an avid comic book collector. I've been collecting comics since I was probably 6 or 7 years old. My father was a huge Conan the Barbarian fanatic, and that made me fall in love with Red Sonja. And then I fell in love with a character that's been morphed and changed in a lot of ways. But when Marvel first released Starfire, she was an alien slave character that I was obsessed with. I also had a really weird, bizarre, sexual attraction to Plastic Man and Underdog, which is really weird, and I don't usually share this. But I became really obsessed with Wendy and Richard Pini's ElfQuest on Wharf Graphics. And I always wanted to be Lita of the Sun Folk, who fell in love with Cutter. I never got to play her. And when I met Wendy and Richard, this is how obsessed I am. In the liner notes of Street Fairy, the album that I wrote, I thanked them for creating ElfQuest. And then at one of the cons I was at, I met Richard and I said, please make this a movie, I have to play Lita. And he said that I was Kavi from the Go Backs. So, I guess, boop boopy doo. Listen, I'll take it. I'm not an ingrate. Sometimes, not in this case. No. Yes.
Sort of like piggybacking off of your experience here.
Yeah.
Asking for Cree alone. Are you enjoying the weekend in Atlanta?
I love it. I love Hot Atlanta, Chocolate City. Who wouldn't? I'm gonna hang out with my girl Jasmine. Guys gonna come hang out with me. Yeah, she'll be here today for the panel, just to come hang out with me, and then we'll get into some trouble. So when you see me Saturday morning, if I'm like, yeah, it's just coffee, blame her. I love Atlanta. It's hot as shit. I love it.
Cree said.
God, it is dangerous. Okay.
Cool. Any other questions that are going out? Or okay.
That's it?
Well, wait,
Okay.
I did have one more.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're often paired with certain voice actors on a consecutive basis. Do you have, in a playful manner or even a serious manner, do you have any voice acting rivals or voice acting idols? Or
Oh, child, there's no voice acting rivals.
You sure?
That's no, I really don't think so. That's the difference. That's what people don't realize. There's a lot of rivalry in on camera, but you have to take into account the anonymity of voice acting. We're not seen. So it's really hard to be a rival when we are really kind of unsung. It's a new thing now that people are starting to know who does the voices and give a shit who does the voices. So there's a rare thing you find in the voiceover community where if Gray Delisle goes out for a part and she doesn't think she's right for it, I've literally been moments where she'll call the casting agent and say, who should get this Cree Summer? Tara Strong, who I grew up with in Toronto, refers me for jobs all the time, and vice versa. I love my VO people. We hang out on purpose, and we feel like there's enough to go around. And that's no bullshit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Chow mein, motherfucker.
I forgot to give you the all ages thing like I gave Ben. So if he sees all of this going, he's gonna be like, she told me no, and Cree's just like telling us it is. So sorry, Ben.
Okay, sorry.
I know, right?
Good?
Good.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
This is number 5. And number 1 and 2. Kids Next Door Battle Stations! Hooray.
All right.